GBC Kanda. I am Maltiti Saida Sadek. You can watch us on channel 278 on DSTV in Africa and around the world, and on social media we're streaming at GTV Ghana on Facebook, YouTube and on Twitter. We'll look at security, we'll look at the suspension of the Tanker Drivers Association, and we'll also do some trade and business, take you to Parliament and go to the international front. Now we'll continue to invest in Ghana because we see great opportunities in the country, and we'll soon launch a platform for the financing of micro and small and medium-sized enterprises to grow the economy, says Jose Vinals, Group Chairman of Standard Chartered Bank. Mr. Vinals yesterday interacted with President Akufo-Addo at the Jubilee House in Accra.
Standard Chartered Bank's footprint in Ghana became visible 127 years ago. Arguably the oldest commercial bank in Ghana, it has experienced the country in good and bad times, but has remained committed to the Ghana project by providing products that meet the needs of government and the private sector. At a meeting with President Akufo-Addo at the Jubilee House in Accra, the Group Chairman of the Standard Chartered Bank, Mr. Jose Vinals, said the bank will support Ghana to lift her head high above the waters.
This visit, which is exclusively for Ghana, I'm not making this as part of a tour of Africa, I'm just coming to Ghana from Europe and then I'll be back to Europe, is to signal our very strong commitment to the country at this time, where Ghana is working very hard to overcome some of the challenges that it has, and which have been due in a significant part to the very difficult international environment that the country and the region has been facing. And this reconfirmation of our support is also a vote of confidence on Ghana's future. We are confident that working hard and in joint manner between the government and the private sector, Ghana will be out of this situation and will re-embark on the growth path that it had before COVID and the other crises that hit the country, the region and the world.
President Akufo-Addo said the digitalization agenda being pursued by the government forms part of the move to transform the economy.
This government is fully committed to do whatever it can to aid the private sector, both domestic and foreign, to work in this competitive an environment as possible, to make it, to enable the private sector to be able to contribute to the growth of our economy. We believe strongly that ultimately it is the strength of the private sector in Ghana that will determine Ghana's future and its prospects. So a bank like yours that has had lots of experience here as well as around the world in providing the products that enable private sector operators to work is a bank whose contribution and association we value very much.
Standard Chartered Bank is one of the few banks that sits on the board set up by the UN to recalibrate the framework for the sovereign debt restructuring process. Edward Nyakun reporting for GBC News.
Away from the Jubilee House, tanker drivers across the country have suspended their nationwide strike after meeting Roads and Highways Minister Mr. Kwesi Amoako-Attah and the Transport Minister Mr. Kweku Faurie-Siama. The 4-day strike was to impress on the authorities to fix the bad roads leading to fuel depots across the country. The Roads Minister assured the drivers that their concerns will be addressed immediately.
The 4 tanker unions, the Ghana National Petroleum Union, the Bulk Tanker Drivers Union, the Gas Tanker Drivers Union and the United Goil Tanker Drivers Association on Monday embarked on a nationwide strike, citing poor roads to fuel depots across the country. In Tema, the drivers say the route that links Tema Oil Refinery and Pong has become unmatchable, making it difficult for drivers to ply the road, especially when the tankers are loaded. 4 days into the strike, the Minister for Roads and Highways, Mr. Kwesi Amoako-Attah, and the Transport Minister, Mr. Kweku Faurie-Siama, visited the union drivers in Tema to assess the routes. Mr. Amoako-Attah said the routes have been awarded to contractors, but work has been slow.
This road has not been abandoned by government. No, ya award on contract. Our contractor kra ewo ekwano so dida. Washishe enyuma na se a oyebi Nemum yenya nu ye senia mopeno. Nti ye di contractor no kura aba.
The Transport Minister, Mr. Kwesi Ofori-Siama, asked the drivers to consider the shortage of petroleum products in the country and its effect on Ghanaians and go back to work.
And so, definitely, the minister Bane, Mama Kumantomuyem, a contractor also, and it drew our no be. In fact, Mimueno, the catching them and go for no Monia, Mimukaka Krebi, there's all facility. Mama assurance no the mama dem to say e be ba critical be be enya na kra na muntumino eni manim ya mama assurance obe ya mama na fi moto mo faso na ma yadwuma na mama mre.
After over 2 hours of a closed-door meeting, the drivers agreed to suspend the strike on condition that a 7-member committee will be formed to monitor the progress of work on the roads and also ensure that the ministry construct roads leading to other fuel depots in the country. The Vice Chairman of the National Petroleum Drivers Union read the communique.
The union has decided to suspend strike by midnight today, 29th June 2023, based on the following conditions. 1. Though works are currently ongoing on toll road and the contractor will increase his equipment holding on the road and ensure that riding quality is improved within 3 weeks. 2. The access road to the depots in Kumasi, Thakrade, and Bupe are improved. Works on this access road will be commenced by tomorrow, 30th June 2023.
The drivers will, from midnight today, load petroleum products from all depots across the country.
Now, an informant was sent a video filmed secretly to GBC News on what appears to be some underhand dealings at the Aplao border checkpoint. It's alleging that the National Intelligence Bureau, NIB, formerly BNI, is involved in what he calls abuse of public office for private gains. Meanwhile, GBC News has made contact with the national security apparatus for a response and will update our viewers as and when we do get the reply.
Officials of the National Intelligence Bureau, NIB, are officially involved in customs procedures at the border checkpoints, but their duty is only to check documents of duties paid to customs, not to collect duties from importers or persons who transact business and are crossing the border with goods. However, there is a suspicious development. The NIB officials now mount collection tables at their point of duty yard and make non-members of staff sign documents. Their story says the officer wearing a cap in this video is a cleaner at the baggage hall of the National Intelligence Bureau office. It is the lady sitting next to him who is an official of the National Intelligence Bureau. The cleaner is signing a document on behalf of the NIB official. What could this mean? Our informant describes the act as a violation of the public trust in our national security forces. He calls for eagle-eye scrutiny of the operations of officials at the Aplao border. GBC News is following up on this development with the appropriate authorities.
All banking institutions have up to July 1st, 2023 to acquire protective, sophisticated bullion vans for cash in transit or transfer of monies to check the increasing incidence of bullion van attacks in the country. This directive from the Bank of Ghana comes 2 years after an earlier directive in July 2021 when a bullion van was attacked by suspected armed robbers at Jamestown, following another incident recently at Ablekuma resulting in the death of a police escort. The president of the Association of Bullion Van Operators Ghana, Alhaji Idi Sumaila, says the banks have no choice than to comply with the directive.
About a week ago, news of a bullion van attack at Ablekuma Fan Milk went viral. 4 suspected gunmen had targeted the van, which was parked at a fuel station. A police escort on board was shot multiple times and died on the spot. This raised questions about the use of armored bullion vans for cash in transit or transfer of monies. The Bank of Ghana had earlier extended a deadline for banking institutions to acquire sophisticated vans for safety. However, the banks asked for extension of time to comply with the directive. 2 years down the line, the central bank has given the banks up to July 1 to procure protective vans. A security analyst, Mr. Adib Sani, says the Bank of Ghana must ensure the directive is implemented to the letter.
What I am, to be honest, disappointed about is the bank's inability to fully operationalize this. 2 years is more than enough. The banks make money. They make a lot of profits. Even if they cannot buy those worth $90,000, $200,000, we can start modestly by retrofitting it right here in Ghana. So it really beats my imagination that some would subscribe to it, others don't.
President of the Association of Bullion Van Operators Ghana, Alhaji Idi Sumaila, says most banks lack the financial muscles to comply.
So we are still talking to them. We are talking to the police administration. We are talking to the Ghana Association of Bankers in trying to see the possible way out. So that's where we are at the moment. But I wish to state that the directive has fully been complied with by the banks and by all the service providers.
Alhaji Sumaila explained that the van in the recent incident at Ablekuma was not retrofitted enough to ensure protection from bullets. He assured that from July 1, such vans would not be allowed to transfer monies to the bank.
Let's go to the courts. The Criminal Division of the Accra High Court, presided over by Justice Mary Yanzu, has set Tuesday, July 4, 2023, for lawyers of Mr. James Gyakye Quayson to move application for stay of proceedings filed earlier by the Member of Parliament elect for Asin North constituency. Now, this was after the court said it does not have copies of the application. Lawyers of Mr. Gyakye Quayson are appealing against an earlier decision by the High Court on Friday, June 23, 2023, which dismissed an application for variation of court hearings on his criminal case.
Mr. James Gyakye Quayson, the Member of Parliament elect for Asin North, filed an application at the Court of Appeal challenging the High Court's ruling for his criminal trial to be heard on a day-to-day basis. Mr. Gyakye Quayson's affidavit described the High Court's ruling to allow daily trial as errors of law. His affidavit also said the ruling of the court had taken a political turn, with President Akufo-Addo making prejudicial comments and emphasizing an earlier comment made by the Attorney General, Mr. Godfred Yeboah-Dame, that Mr. Gyakye Quayson was irresponsible in deciding to contest for a parliamentary election when he was facing criminal charges. He also argued that the President and Attorney General are allegedly craving for the conviction and imprisonment of the accused person without any regard to the constitutionally guaranteed fundamental human rights of the accused person.
The Attorney General and Minister for Justice and the President of the Republic should be interested in justice, not in jailing people at all costs, whether or not they are innocent or they are guilty. But so far, from their commentary, their body language, from their actions, it appears very clearly that they are not interested in the truth, they are not interested in justice, but they are interested in reloading this whole trial, fast forwarding everything so that they can jail an innocent man.
Mr. James Gyakye Quayson is standing trial for 5 charges, including perjury and forgery, among others, which the court said will be heard on a daily basis.
The first gentleman of Asin North have come to fix their place for them. Have come to fix their lives.
The High Court on Friday dismissed an application by Mr. Gyakye Quayson to review its decision to hear the case on a daily basis.
Away from the coast, the 43rd Escort Task Group of the Chinese People's Army Navy is at the Tema Port on a 3-day port visit. The Chinese Naval Escort Task Force consists of guided missile destroyer Nanning, guided missile frigate Sanya, and comprehensive supply ship Wei Shanhu, as well as 2 ship-borne helicopters and more than 700 troops. The visit is to strengthen the Ghana-China bilateral relationship.
Since 1960, Ghana and China have enjoyed good relations. This was when the two countries first established diplomatic relations. Since then, Ghana has provided substantial diplomatic support to the People's Republic of China, with China reciprocating with material support for Ghana's development. In trade, China remains Ghana's biggest trading partner. The economic and trade exchange between both countries is flourishing. Bilateral trade volume stands at more than $7.46 billion, being among the top in Africa. In the area of defense and security over the past decades, the Ministry of Defense and the Ghana Armed Forces have benefited enormously from the Chinese Defense Cooperation assistance in many areas, including training, platform acquisition, construction, amongst others. The Ghana Navy relationship with the Chinese deepened through the Defense Cooperation acquisition of 4 fast patrol boats, Snake class, from China in 2018. These vessels remain the backbone of the Ghana Navy fleet operations, contributing significantly to maritime security in the Gulf of Guinea. The arrival of the 43rd Chinese Naval Escort Task Force demonstrates China's commitment to support Ghana in defense and security. The naval escort set sail for the Gulf of Aden and the waters of Somalia from a military port in Zhanjiang City, southeast China's Guangdong province in January 10 this year. Since setting off in January this year, the 43rd Task Force has completed escort tasks for 21 ships in 16 batches. In late April, the guided missile destroyer Nanning and the comprehensive supply ship Weishanhu attached to the task force were dispatched in an emergency to evacuate Chinese people from conflict-torn Sudan. The naval ships were warmly received at the dock by a grand welcoming ceremony. China's ambassador to Ghana, Mr. Lu Kun, said in defense and security, Ghana and China have a good relationship, and China's government will continue with that support to help deal with the security threats in the sub-region.
Last year, President Xi Jinping proposed the Global Security Initiative. Early this year, China issued the Global Security Initiative concept paper. It states clearly that it is our common aspiration to achieve lasting world peace. China is ready to conduct bilateral, multilateral security cooperation with all countries and international and regional organizations.
The Deputy Minister for Defense, Mr. Kofi Amankwa-Menu, said cooperation on the threat of terrorism and violent extremism, maritime insecurity, among others, have become major issues in the West African security environment, and Ghana is not immune to such threats, making the cooperation between the two countries important and mutually beneficial in stamping out these threats.
I am of the firm belief that focused mutual and collaborative efforts of China and Africa have a very high propensity to yield the needed result. It is also my hope and wish that key objectives of this visit will be collectively achieved.
Before arriving at the Tema port, the Export Task Group of China Navy also visited Côte d'Ivoire. For the next 3 days, the task group will engage Ghana's military and build capacity for mutual benefit.
Away from the ports, for Ghana's first president, Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, it was foresight that the country must develop and use nuclear science to introduce useful and harmless technologies. And this birthed the establishment of the Ghana Atomic Energy Commission, GAEC, in 1963. GAEC is the sole agency in Ghana responsible for all matters relating to peaceful uses of atomic energy.
As a research institution, GAEC has carried out extensive investigation in many scientific fields and also produced several innovations that Director of Commercialization and Communication, Nana Boateng, says will be of immense benefit to Ghanaians if commercialized.
Currently, Ghana satellite, it's the satellite that provides the best data, and so other countries like South Africa has partnered us, and the US as well is interested in partnering us to use our facilities to help gain visibility and use data around the space along the equator where Ghana gives better visibility.
With many Ghanaians unhappy with the high electricity bills, the clarion call remains for the country to explore the nuclear energy option. Nana Boateng says the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, has given Ghana the green light to operate a nuclear power plant as a sustainable option to its electricity supply needs. Is Ghana ready to have or to introduce nuclear power into its energy mix?
Ghana is ready to embark on the nuclear power. We've done with the phase 1. We are also beginning the phase 2, which now enables us to set up the nuclear power. The establishment of a nuclear plant in Ghana has enormous benefits to our nation. It will create jobs, over 1,000 jobs. It's estimated that just the preparation stages by building the reactor alone can create over 1,000 jobs. As we speak also, we've identified the sites where we want to establish our nuclear power station or the plants. We have about 2 locations or 3 locations that we are monitoring. So we have something called the seismic monitoring. The seismic monitoring, where we have seismic machines installed on this land to check it or monitor its seismic activities, just to reconfirm that these sites that we have identified are safe to host our plants.
On Friday, June 30, a team of experts including scientists, policymakers and opinion leaders will converge on the premises of GAEC for a scientific innovation dialogue to commemorate the Day of Scientific Renaissance. The dialogue will discuss the potential of nuclear energy in addressing food security and cancer challenge in Ghana. Soyoko Kwakuchere, GBC News, Accra.
Now, the Energy Media Group has officially opened nominations for the 7th Ghana Energy Awards GEA at a media launch in Accra. The award scheme is to recognize innovation and excellence of organizations and individuals in the country's energy sector.
Government embarked on the national flag.
This year's Ghana Energy Award is on the theme Ghana's Energy Transition Framework, Sector Institutions as Building Blocks for the 2030-2040 targets. The award has 23 competitive and 5 non-competitive categories. The Chief Executive of the Energy Media Group, Mr. Henry Teno, who is also the Events Director of the GEA, said the theme was carefully chosen to align with the country's position on the ongoing discussion on energy transition.
Ghana Energy Awards is more than just an award scheme. It is a mission and a vision and a movement. It is a platform for showcasing the best of the Ghana's energy sector and advancing its development and transformation.
An energy consultant and chairman of the GEA panel, Mr. Kwame Jantua, stated that the choice of theme for this year reflects the significant roles of various state institutions and agencies towards achieving the goals set out in the country's National Energy Transition Framework.
We have moved from, how can I say, the old type of energy into transition. So please, 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 try as much as possible not to repeat what you brought 3-4 years ago, because we're moving into transition, and transition is the operative word. Try as much as possible for your nominations to be in a transitional mood. I'm not saying you shouldn't, some of the categories would need to show what you've done in the past, but also show how you're moving into transition.
Mr. Andre Japa-Mensah is a Deputy Energy Minister.
As a ministry, we are committed to collaborating with our sector agencies and other relevant stakeholders to ensure that our goals are aligned as we pursue the conversation on the future of our energy sector and ultimately our national industrialization agenda.
The award panel urged all individuals, institutions and organizations in the energy sector to take advantage of the commencement of the 7th edition of the awards to send in their nominations. Nomination closes on 29th September 2023.
And the public has cautioned against misinformation or security threats, a practice which security analysts say endangers the country's security. Such acts also has the potential to jeopardize efforts to prevent and contain spread of violent extremism. The commanding officer of the 6th Battalion of Infantry at Kamina Barracks, Lieutenant Colonel Jerry Ankui, was addressing students at a forum organized by the National Commission for Civic Education, NCCE, at Tamale in the Northern Region.
Countries within the West African sub-region, including Ghana, are facing an increasing threat from extremist groups. The development has put Ghana on high alert, with various state agencies taking initiatives to prevent and contain violent extremism. However, one of the key challenges is misinformation, with some claims of terrorist attacks on Ghana. The commanding officer of the 6th Battalion of Infantry, Lieutenant Colonel Jerry Ankui, said such videos are detrimental to efforts to prevent and contain violent extremism. He also touched on the role of women in the spread of violent extremism, saying phenomenon is not limited to men. He urged Ghanaians to be vigilant at all times and report any suspicious activities.
It's not just about at the ground level where you see the attacks. That is why when they are tracing issues of terrorism or violent extremism, they can trace it to the very high level, up to where you talk about people who give logistic support or who even give information and things like that. And there are women who are part and parcel of this.
Front, at least 13 civilians have been killed by jihadists in southeastern Mali. Several other people were also injured in the attack in the Gao province, which coincided with the Eid al-Adha celebrations. But it's not clear if that timing was intentional. The attack happened on Wednesday, just days ahead of a vote scheduled for Friday at the UN Security Council, which is expected to approve Mali's request for UN peacekeepers to withdraw from the country. Now, a draft resolution drawn up by France suggests that all personnel were withdrawn within 6 months. The withdrawal of the mission known as MINUSMA would come after years of tensions between the UN and Mali's military junta. And let's bring you the weather updates now. It's the weekend, and so you'd want to know how the weather will pan out. Frederick Kujo joins us on the phone lines now. Good morning, Frederick.
Good morning, Maltese.
A good Friday and a good weekend for outgoers.
Yes, well, a very good morning to all the viewers. So from now through to the weekend, that is Sunday, more of sunshine to be seen for most part of the day. But then early hours of the mornings will be characterized by some few clouds. And then some misty conditions over the forest belt. But then most part of the day will be more of sunny conditions with some intermittent cloudy conditions. However, areas where we are expecting some sunny activities from now through to the weekend are mostly over the forest belt, and then some areas in the northern region. So areas in eastern border, Oti region, and then Ashanti region are slated for some sunny activities, mostly from late afternoon into the evening, that is Saturday and then Sunday. And then also some areas in the northern half of the country are also likely to have some Sunday activities, mostly to occur from late afternoon into Sunday, into the evening, that is Saturday and then Sunday.
Right. Thank you so much, Frederick. Could you give us a rundown of how the weather will pan out from today through to Sunday? That's it for GTV Breakfast News. There's more news when you log onto our website at gbcghanaonline.com. I am Maltiti Saida Sadek. Now, we have a lot to offer you on a Friday edition of GTV Breakfast Show. We're going, after the break, into BFS Tech Corner, and we're looking at AI and the job market, after which we'll bring you Social Media Corner, after I bring you sports, by the way. And then we have headlines. We have a sit-down with the UN Chair on Disabilities, and, of course, lifestyle. MJ, the comedian, will be in the studio. Stay with us.